Good evening, everybody. I am pre-recording this video on Super Bowl Sunday to be released at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, February 11th. Today is February 8th at 9:14 p.m. So for this video, I will be talking about books that describe Rachel Green from Friends for Jennifer Aniston's birthday. Jennifer Aniston probably will not see this video, though I will tag her in it on Instagram. I doubt she's actually going to have time to watch it, but if she does, happy birthday, Jennifer. I hope you have a great day, and I have been your biggest fan for many, many years. So the main book I'm going to review today is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Another book that I read for this Rachel-centered TBR. Rachel-centered TBR that is by this author that I will briefly mention is After I Do, which me and Kathleen read last month. So this is one of my favorite books by Taylor Jenkins Reid, besides Daisy Jones and the Six. How it connects to Rachel is that, so this story is about a girl named Monique who is sent by her magazine to interview this reclusive Hollywood starlet from the 1950s named Evelyn Hugo, who was the talk of the town back then. In this interview for her tell-all book, she reveals that she was a closeted lesbian for many years, or bisexual, and that she was in a relationship with the actress Cecilia St. James. So this book has a lot of mixed media in it because it has blog posts and newspaper articles that chronicle both the trajectory of Evelyn's career and also the trajectory of her relationships. The main discussion question I'm answering in this video today is the book club enhancement question number 3. Taylor Jenkins Reid is the author of 4 other novels. One True Loves, Maybe in Another Life, which also I read for this TBR, I read like 4 different books by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one, After I Do, Maybe in Another Life, and Forever Interrupted. And I also read Daisy Jones and the Six, but that book describes Phoebe, not Rachel. And I talked about Daisy Jones and the Six in the video last month I made about books that you should read if Phoebe is your favorite character. So, how After I Do connects to Rachel is that this book focuses on 2 characters named Lauren and Ryan, who are very similar to Rachel and Ross in their relationship because they have relationship troubles and they go on a break to figure things out. Lauren takes some time away from the relationship to talk to her family about what love and being in a relationship means to them. And a quote from that book that I connected to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is, if you stay married for a number of years and have a happy time and you decide to be happy with someone else, it is not a failure. How this connects to Evelyn Hugo is that her marriage to Harry Cameron ends in divorce. So obviously that relationship was not happy, but it did relate to something happy because they had a kid together, a daughter named Connor. And the thing that I didn't really like about After I Do is that you never really know if Lauren and Ryan resolve their relationship issues. I loved in that book how Lauren's character was fleshed out, but Ryan's character you really don't get to learn a lot about. And I had a hard time connecting his character to Ross, but how this book connects to Rachel is that when I was reading this book, I thought about when they got married in Las Vegas, and then Ross decided to get the marriage annulled. That happened at the end of season 5. How the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo connects to Rachel is, as everybody knows, she is into fashion. So this book connects to Rachel's character because of the newspaper articles that are about the award shows, and it specifically connects to the episode where they're picking out tuxes for Chandler and Monica's wedding, and Chandler gets pissed off because of the fact that Ross got Val Kilmer's tux from Batman, because as Matthew Perry mentioned in his book, he loved Batman. And then he ends up getting Pierce Brosnan's tux from 007 movies. So I gave this book 5 stars. And the next book that I wanted to talk about that I'm going to be reading very soon that describes Rachel is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. This novella is about, I'll tell you what it's about. In A Room of One's Own, Virginia Woolf imagines that Shakespeare had a sister equal to Shakespeare, talent and equal in genius, but whose legacy is radically different. This imaginary woman never writes a word and dies by her own hand, her genius unexpressed. If only she had found means to create, argues Woolf, she would have reached the same height as her immortal sibling. In this classic essay, Woolf takes on the establishment using her gift of language to dissect the world around her and give voice to those who are without. Her message is a simple one. Women must have a steady income and a room of their own in order to have a freedom to create. So this is obviously like a feminist text, and how this book connects to Rachel is when they're in the hospital, when she's pregnant with Emma, and they're just arriving at the hospital and checking in, and Rachel is having PMS, and Ross makes an offhanded comment about being a woman, and Rachel says, "No uterus, no opinion." And this quote is really prominent these days because of all of the issues with Donald Trump wanting to take away reproductive rights. So if you have never read this essay by Virginia Woolf, I highly recommend it. 5 stars. The next book that I read that connects to Rachel is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. This book focuses on Bea and Levi, who are workplace rivals, but then they become lovers. So the relationship dynamic between B and Levi is very similar to that of Tag and Rachel. Tag, for those of you who do not remember, is Rachel's assistant at Ralph Lauren, who is played by Tate Donovan, who at the time was dating Jennifer Aniston. By the way, yes, I think the reason why I think part of the reason why Tag and Rachel have good chemistry on Friends is because Tate Donovan and Jennifer Aniston were a couple in real life. Did I think that their relationship was appropriate? No. Rachel should have never told her coworker that she had a crush on him. She should have lost her job during that inappropriate thing with the evaluation where she says that Tag has a nice butt. Like, if I was Rachel's boss, I would have fired her. The next book that I am reading for my TBR that focuses on Rachel is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. So when I was doing research for this video, I was referring to different reading lists I found on Instagram about books that describe Friends characters. I can't remember which person posted about this book, but in the list that they posted, they said that Rachel would buddy read this book with Monica, and I totally agree. And knowing that Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox are besties in real life, again, not that they're gonna see this video, but if they do, I was wondering if they have ever read this book before and what they think about it. This is a historical fiction book that is set during World War II that focuses on two sisters named Isabel and Vianne. They are on two different sides of the war. One sister much wants to keep a private family life, and the other one is fighting in a war resistance. So I think the sister that fights in the resistance, if I'm not mistaken, is Vianne. And again, feminism is Rachel. And the family woman in this situation would be Monica. So Monica would be I think Vianne is the one who fights in the resistance, and then Isabel is the one who wants to have a quiet family life, and still support the war efforts, but from home. So in my reread of The Nightingale, I am on chapter 30, page 425, and I should hopefully finish this book tomorrow. Another book that I have read that describes Rachel's character that I got from the library last week was Confessions of a Shopaholic by Sophie Kinsella. This is a book about a girl who is a fashion writer who lives in England. And obviously this character describes Rachel because she's into fashion. and I gave the Confessions of a Shopaholic book 4.5 stars. The author of Confessions of a Shopaholic series recently passed away from cancer right before Christmas. Her name was Sophie Kinsella, and she was from England. So I just discovered her books last year, and I wish I had discovered them sooner. I think her writing is great. If you haven't read any of her books, you should definitely read Confessions of a Shopaholic, but another book that I read by her for the Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR is called The Party Crasher, which I think fits the episode in the first season of Gilmore Girls perfectly, when it's Rory's birthday party and Richard and Emily throw her the birthday party at their house in Connecticut, at their house in at their house. I forget what town it's in. And I also found a list on Instagram of movies that describe the characters from Friends. And a movie that we watched that describes Rachel is Pretty Woman with Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. And obviously, in case you missed it somehow, Julia Roberts was on Friends in a Super Bowl episode where she played Chandler's elementary school classmate who reconnects with her, goes out with him on a date, and then steals his underwear and leaves him locked in a restaurant bathroom. I felt really bad for Chandler in that scene. I didn't think he deserved that embarrassment, but so Susie Moss was a girl that Chandler went to elementary school with, who he bullied and took her underwear from her. So basically it was payback. But the one scene in this episode that's between them, Susie and Chandler, I really saw a lot of chemistry between them, was when they are like together in Chandler's apartment, or maybe they're at Susie's apartment. I don't know what apartment they were in, but they were like having a romantic moment together on the couch. And I think their chemistry in that scene was definitely notable because of the fact that at the time that episode of Friends was filming, Julia Roberts and Matthew Perry were a couple. So that makes perfect sense. And so if you are not familiar with Pretty Woman, to me, this is a 1990s retelling of the musical My Fair Lady. But instead of playing a Coventry Garden flower girl, Julia Roberts plays a hooker named Vivian, who Richard Gere's character, Michael, basically asks her to like be his escort to parties and fancy things and buy her nice clothes. And the scene that connects to Rachel in that movie is the scene where Vivian goes shopping on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills for nice fancy clothes to get out of her call girl clothes. So lots of stores on Rodeo Drive are probably stores that Rachel worked at. So if you have seen that movie and are familiar with that scene, how many stores can you spot that Rachel worked at during Friends? Let's play a game. So let me know if you watched that movie and how many stores you can spot. Matt and I watched Pretty Woman last night, and we gave it 7 out of 10 stars. So that is today's mini episode of book reviews and one movie review for the Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR in honor of Jennifer Aniston's birthday. I will be back with another bi-weekly wrap-up video on Thursday the 19th. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and happy Valentine's Day on Saturday.